My name is Armin Kritzinger, and welcome back to our course on the fundamental teachings of Christianity. We have seen that what you believe about some important things can have a major impact on your life. If you believe that murdering someone is okay, and you murder someone, even if you really sincerely believe that it is okay, you still have to face the consequences and you will probably go to jail. Since our beliefs can have such a major impact on our life, and even impact other people around us, we can also see that it is important for us to understand why we believe what we believe. We don't want to believe some myth or some fairy tale just because someone else told us that it's true. So this leaves us with the question, how can we know what is true? How can we find truth? There was a professor who taught one of my PhD classes, and he said that whenever we read something or hear something, then there are 4 questions that we can ask that will help us a lot, and I want to share these 4 questions with you. The first question is, who said what? This is one question, but it has 2 parts. Who said it, and what did they say? Question number 2, why did they say it? This is asking the why question. Why? What is their reason? Why do they believe it? Question number 3, why do you agree or disagree? This is also one question with 2 parts. Do you agree or disagree? Or perhaps you have no opinion? And then you need to explain the reason for your position and what you think. And then question number 4, what is your contribution or application? How does this affect you? How does this affect other people? What are you going to do about it? Remember that we read in the book Education by Ellen G. White, page 17, that it is the work of true education to develop this power, to train the youth to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thought. I think that these 4 questions are very helpful in training and helping us to be thinkers. And I hope that you will use these 4 questions throughout this course when you are listening to what I am saying. What is Armin Kritzinger saying? Why is he saying it? Do I agree or disagree with what he's saying, and why do I agree or disagree? And then question number 4, how am I going to apply this knowledge? What am I going to do with it? How am I going to allow this knowledge to shape or change my life? So let us dig a little deeper about this idea of truth and knowing what is true. In this lesson, we are going to be discussing 2 words, metaphysics and epistemology. Now, maybe you've never heard of these 2 words before. So let's take some time to just explain these 2 words first. Let's start with the word metaphysics. Metaphysics is when we try to answer the question, what is true or what is real? The word metaphysics literally means beyond physics or after physics. This is because metaphysics tries to answer questions that can't really be answered by experiments. The questions are beyond physics. Some of these questions are, the first thing that is responsible for everything in our universe being there, where did that first thing come from? Or another question is, what is the nature of man and man's consciousness? Or are there spirits that exist? And then especially one question that we are really interested in this course is, does God exist? When it comes to these questions, it doesn't really matter what religion you are, or whether you're an agnostic or an atheist. These are a couple of things that just can't be answered through experiments. This is metaphysics. And this word and idea seems to be very popular amongst people who like to talk about philosophy. Our second word is epistemology. Now, epistemology asks the question, how can we know what is true? So it is different from metaphysics. Remember, metaphysics asks the question, what is true? What is real? Where epistemology asks, how can we find out what is true and what is real? Epistemology is therefore concerned with the methods that we use to find truth. And here we're not talking about opinions, because people can have any opinion that they like. We are talking about truth, facts, or justified belief. So when it comes to epistemology, there are a couple of ways how people try to determine what is true. I want to share with you 5 of these most popular methods that people use. The first one is culture or popular opinion. If most people believe something, then it must be true. I hope you can see that this is not a good way to learn what is true. If most people believed that 1 + 1 is equal to 6, that would not make it true. A world where everyone believed that such an idea is true, it would be chaos. In such a world, you would give $1 million to the bank today, and then give another $1 million to the bank tomorrow, and then you would tell the bank to give you $6 million back, because 1 + 1 is 6. And culture and popular opinion, it changes and it develops over time. It seems like there was a time where most of the people in the world, they were okay with slavery, and it seems like today most people in the world are not okay with slavery. I hope that you can see that just because the majority of people believe something, just because culture teaches something, doesn't necessarily mean that it's either true or false. I really hope that you don't accept or reject ideas based on culture or popular opinion. I hope you are smarter than that. Perhaps you've seen the quote that says, "Truth is truth even if nobody believes it. And a lie is still a lie even if everyone believes it." Another way people try to figure out what is true is to appeal to those in authority. It means that people listen to those who they believe are right, those who they think are knowledgeable, those who have high education degrees or high positions of power. The problem is that power and authority and education degrees, all of those things, it just doesn't guarantee that someone is right about everything. I hope that you can see the danger here. I hope you are not one of those people who believe that something is either true or false just because someone with authority and knowledge and power or education degree said it. They can be wrong, and they have been wrong, lots and lots of times. Don't stop asking why just because someone with authority said it. And we can even combine these first 2 points. It is not just that popular opinion can be wrong and that those in authority can be wrong, but even the popular opinion amongst those in authority can be wrong. Just because the majority of scientists believe something doesn't mean that it's true or false in and of itself. We still have to ask the question, why do they believe that and how did they come to that conclusion? Another way people try to find truth is through intuition. Now, lots of people explain this concept, intuition, quite differently. With the word intuition, I mean that gut feeling, or some people call it the sixth sense. And it seems that sometimes people actually have this gut feeling and then something actually happens, but then other times people have this gut feeling and nothing happens. On its own, it doesn't seem very reliable. And people in the same situation even have completely different and contrasting gut feelings. Other people believe that our intuition or our gut feeling can be given and developed by a higher power like God to guide us in life. I hope that you can see that intuition by itself is not a very reliable way to establish if something is either true or false. Another way, the fourth way, how people try to find truth is through rationalism. This means by reason, through thinking about things, by common sense. But I'm sure that you will agree that all of our reasoning capabilities are not all the same. It seems like some people reason a little bit better than others. It seems like there are some true things that we learn from others, even after we really thought about it a lot and just couldn't understand it. Our reasoning might be faulty. We make mistakes in how we think. We make mistakes in conclusions that we make. Just like culture, the opinions of people, people in authority, and our intuition is very valuable, so reason is also very useful, especially with simple, easy things. But it is not a foolproof way to establish whether something is either true or false, especially when it comes to more complicated things. Now, here is an important point that I want to make about reason. When it comes to reason, we can say, it is reasonable to believe that Sarah is telling the truth, if all that we know about Sarah is that Sarah has always been telling us the truth. It is rational to believe that Sarah is telling us the truth today because she's always told us the truth in the past and she condemns lying. We do not have any experience of Sarah lying to us yet, so we cannot reasonably conclude that she's going to lie to us today. Even though this does not guarantee 100% that Sarah isn't going to lie to you today, it is more rational to believe that she's going to tell you the truth today than it would be to believe that she's going to lie to you today. And this is mainly based on what you know about her, your experience with her. So even though reason and thinking is not foolproof, it is still very, very important. A fifth way people try to find truth is through experiment, through the senses. Maybe you have some personal experience, or maybe you perform a certain procedure. You observe it through your senses, and then you draw some conclusion from that experience or experiment. We look, we taste, we feel, we listen, we think, we draw conclusions. This is very valuable and useful, but we need to understand that our senses and our conclusions are not always correct. When it comes to seeing something, we can be blind, or we can be colorblind, or we can hallucinate to think that we are seeing something when actually it's just not there. We can even have auditory hallucinations where we think we hear something that's not really there. We can even draw completely wrong conclusions from our experience in experiments. And so we need to realize the limits of experiments, feelings, experiences, and our senses. Our feelings, our thoughts, our senses can be very deceiving. We have looked at what I believe is the 5 most common ways how people try to find truth. We have seen that all 5 of these are very, very useful. We need common sense. We need reason. We need experiments. But we've also seen that each one of these by themselves does not guarantee that you're always going to find truth. Now, combining some of these methods might lead to a higher chance of finding truth, but sometimes they might even just make you more confused. Remember, we are looking at metaphysics. What is truth? And we're also looking at epistemology. How can we find truth? It would have been very nice if truth itself just tells us how to find truth. But then we would need a way for us to know how to determine whether that truth is really true. So we end up in this cycle where we want to know truth, we are not sure how to find it, and we want truth to tell us how to find it, but how can we know that it's really true if it tells us, since we don't have a way to determine what is truth? Sounds confusing, right? Exactly. And that is one reason why philosophers have literally been discussing this for thousands of years. I want to suggest a 6th way to find truth. The 6th way people try to find truth is through divine revelation. Divine revelation is when people believe that there is a divine, all-knowing being who provides inspired ideas, visions, or writings. Many people see God as such an divine, all-knowing being who only gives truth to people. But for this to be true, there are 2 very important questions that need to be answered. Obviously, we want to know whether that divine being is actually real, whether that divine being exists, and 2, if what that divine being says is always true. So in order to know if divine revelation from God is the most trustworthy way to find truth, we have these very, very important 2 questions that we need to answer as part of this course. Does God really exist? Is everything that God says really true? If God does not exist, then I don't know if this whole course has got any value at all. And even if God does exist, but some things that he says is true and other things that he says is not true, then we are still left with the problem to figure out what is true and what is not true from amongst what he says. So now it is time to answer these two most important questions. Does God really exist? Is everything that God says really true? How are we going to answer these two questions? Where do we start looking? Ellen White, in her book Education, page 169, writes, "But God has given in the scriptures sufficient evidence of their divine authority. His own existence, his character, the truthfulness of his word are established by testimony that appeals to our reason, and this testimony is abundant." Ellen White says that in the Bible, God has provided 4 things. 1. Sufficient evidence that the Bible is his divine word. 2. Abundant testimony about his own existence. 3. Abundant testimony about his character. And 4. Abundant testimony about the truthfulness of his word. This speaks directly to the questions that we want answered. And now we need to investigate to find out whether this evidence really exists or not. If this evidence really exists, then it might just change our lives forever. So make sure that you join us for that exciting lesson. Join me as we are going to embark on this journey to investigate the evidence for the existence of God and the truthfulness of his word.